Hello family and welcome to Enough Chaos's video on the book of Leviticus. This is going to be a fun one for me. So I've heard it no less than a million times. I've heard somebody somewhere will quote me the book of Leviticus to defend one of their points. And the minute they do, I immediately say, oh, so we're quoting from Leviticus now, right? Okay. Now, I guarantee there's a huge chunk of y'all, especially you Leviticus compliant people. If you are now hang on, let me put a caveat in here. If you are a Jewish person, right? If that is your religion, I am not talking to you or about you. That's first one. If you're a Christian and you're trying to quote the book of Leviticus like we are to be obeying the book of Leviticus, I'm talking to you. Oh, so we're using the book of Leviticus now. Yes, if you are a Leviticus compliant person, I'd be willing to bet there's a huge chunk of y'all that just, oh, what? You see, I am a Christian, okay? The Old Testament, when Christ came, he fulfilled the Old Testament. That is not my user manual. The New Testament is my user manual. I am a Gentile. That is my book. Matthew 5:17. Do not think that I came to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill it. Now, there's a lot more to this passage, but trust me, that's enough for the meat on the bones. Let's just do me a favor, hop in the car with me, let's take a ride. So, first of all, what is the law that is spoken of here? There are some people that say that the law is all of the Old Testament, or there's some people that say it's only the Torah, which is Geln. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Geln. That's the Torah. It doesn't matter because the book of Leviticus is literally in both of those situations. So this verse is absolutely talking about the book of Leviticus, as well as at least four others, if not the entire Old Testament. So now we get to the meat, which is obey the book of Leviticus, or that's not applicable to us. I think of it like bedtime, right? When you were young, you had rules that were put under you for a specific situation. You were young, and so your parents told you had to go to bed at, 9, 10 o'clock at night, right? As you've gotten older, do you still go to bed at 9 or 10 o'clock? Well, but your parents told you have to go to bed at 9 or 10 o'clock. What you see, as you've grown older, as you've changed, as things are no longer the same as they were because you're no longer a child, you don't have to play by those same rules. Now, I'm not trying to say that the Jews are children. That's not at all the implication I'm trying to make. What I'm trying to make is there is a definitive difference between some people and other people. And if you are trying to obey the laws of other people, you're going to have problems. But if you choose to, that's your choice. Let's get into some meat. If you start trying to quote to me the book of Leviticus, usually what I'll do is I will square my shoulders up to you, right? Because it's normally some kind of a random conversation. But at this point, now we're going to get ourselves into a firefight. And I will start firing the questions that follow, usually pretty rapid fire. The first question is, how many perfect bulls have you sacrificed to atone for your sins? That's question number 1. Leviticus 4:2-3. Speak to the sons of Israel, saying, if a person sins unintentionally in any of the things which the Lord has commanded not to be done, and commits any of them, if the anointed priest sins so as to bring guilt on the people, then let him offer to the Lord a bull without defect as a sin offering for the sin he has committed. Or if it's a common person, how many goats have you sacrificed? Leviticus 4:27-28. Now, if any one of the common people sins unintentionally in doing any of the things which the Lord has commanded not to be done and becomes guilty, if his sin which he has committed is made known to him, then he shall bring for his offering a goat, a female without defect, for his sin which he has committed. How do you like your steaks cooked? Boiled or burnt to a crisp? You tell me. What do you mean? Medium rare? Medium? Wait, you mean with a little bit of pink blood? Sorry. You eat that steak, you're exiled from the church. Leviticus 7:27. Any person who eats any blood, even that person shall be cut off from his people. Also, I hope that you really don't like ham, bacon, pork of any kind, frog legs, crawfish, alligator meat, shark meat, whale meat, catfish, snake meat. Remember, it has to have scales and fins in order to be good for you to eat. Leviticus 11:6-8 and 12. The rabbit also For though it chews cud, it does not divide the hoof. It is unclean to you. And the pig, for though it divides the hoof, thus making a split hoof, it does not chew cud. It is unclean to you. You shall not eat of their flesh, nor touch their carcasses. They are unclean to you. Whatever in the water does not have fins and scales is abhorrent to you. Usually the person at this point that I'm talking to starts backing up. Maybe not physically, but at least verbally. Understand me, I am not an Israelite. I am a Christian. Okay? The Israelites, the 12 tribes, the Jews, if you will, as a Christian, they are my cousins, right? Think of God as like granddaddy, okay? And he's given all of his grandchildren different rules to follow. Adam and Eve had different rules to follow, right? We weren't just given the Adam and Eve rules. We weren't given the Jewish rules, the Israelites, the 12 tribes, whatever you want to call them. We weren't giving their set of rules. We were given the Christian set of rules. If you are a Leviticus compliant person, that's fine. I got massive respect for you. I really do. That's a really hard row to hold, to comply with all of the book of Leviticus. But don't push it on other people. Please don't push it on other people. When you start pushing it on other people, me and you have a problem. But here's some other rules that you're going to want to follow, just if you're going to be a Leviticus compliant person. Leviticus 12:3. All males must be circumcised exactly 8 days after birth, not the next day or same day like hospitals do. Leviticus 12:2-8. Women, if you have a male child, you're unclean for 1 week and you can't go to church for 30 days after that. But if you have a female child, you're unclean for 2 weeks and you can't go to church for 66 days after that. Either way, don't forget about your lamb, pigeon, or turtle dove as an offering to your church. Make sure you take that offering to your church. Leviticus 13:18-20. If you have a boil, you have to bring it to that priest or pastor to see, and you may be pronounced unclean or even isolated for 7 days. Leviticus 13:29-37. If you have an infection on your head or face, gotta let the church look at that too. 7 days of isolation again. I hope your priest and pastor is caught up on medical treatment. Understand me, family, this was not meant for the Christians spanning the globe. This was meant for the tribes, a very close-knit, very tribal system. This was meant for them, not for us. But understand, if you are going to be Leviticus compliant, man, there's some things that can get you kicked out of the congregation or even death. That's right. If you're going to be Leviticus compliant, death. Here's some of those situations. 15 verse 16, sexually transmitted diseases. 15 verse 19, females who menstruate off cycle. 18 verse 19, sex during menstruation. 20 verse 18 says they get kicked out of the church. If you have sex with your wife while she's menstruating, kicked out of the church. 1927, males cutting their beards. Yes, shaving is considered cutting your beard. 1927, males cutting the hair on the sides of their head. Going to the barber and getting that haircut? There you go. That's cutting the hair on the side of your head. 19 verse 28, tattoos. 19 verse 20, having sex with female slaves. 20 verse 9, cursing your father or mother is death. 20 verse 10, adultery is death. 20 verse 11, incest is death. 20 verse 13, homosexual sex is death. 20 verse 15-16, sex with animals is death. 21 verse 7, no marrying divorced women. 21:10-13, priests have to cover their heads, can't go near dead people. So all those funeral services with that priest or pastor standing right next to the dead person, and can't leave the church. They can't leave the church ever. 21:16-23, no man with defects, to include the blind and the lame, can go into the house of God. You see, this is talking about a tabernacle. This is the main central tent. This is not talking about just going to services or just going to learn. This is meant for the 12 tribes. But when you apply it to Christianity, it takes on a whole different meaning. Now, you can't even go inside the church at all if you're blind. Like as you get older and you start losing sight, you have a defect. Can't go in the church. Pretty simple, right? If the person I'm talking to says they obey every single rule of Leviticus, I say, okay, How many people in the congregation have you killed? How many people have you kicked out of your congregation? How many people have you kicked out of your congregation for having sex with their wives on their menstrual cycle? How many people have you kicked out of your congregation for having tattoos? I hope I've made my point. I have a profound respect for the Bible. I have a profound love for the Bible, including Leviticus. But I also make sure to put everything in its place. Every single one of these things started with, everything in the book of Leviticus starts with, tell the children of Israel. I am not a child of Israel. My people had already left long before that party ever happened. That is my strong hunch. My people left at the whole Ham Canaan situation. I am not an Israeli. Now, time out real quick. I do believe Leviticus 23 is meant for all of us that are on the earth, because that says it's from God. It doesn't say, and just look at the translations. It doesn't say this is the Israelis, this is the 12 tribes, this is the Hebrews rules or anything like that. It says these are God's festivals. KJV, concerning the feasts of the Lord. ESV, these are the appointed feasts of the Lord. NASB, the Lord's appointed times. NIV, these are my appointed festivals. It is the ownership, not give this to the tribes, but it is the ownership is God's. It's again, if we're following that weird thing, the weird reference that I made about Granddaddy, if we're following that weird reference, that Granddaddy owns that one. Those are not rules specifically down to a grandchild. That is daddy's feasts, if you will. Now, Leviticus 24 through 27 goes back to throwing out more punishments and crimes and all that kind of stuff. Please keep in mind, people, we are the Gentiles. This is not our list of rules. It was never meant to be our list of rules. Please stop using Leviticus to hold up your views of how people should behave and how they shouldn't. Please, because the problem is, and I'm specifically targeting one very specific thing here, but I will tell you, if your view is that one specific thing is an abomination to the Lord, understand these are all on the list of abominations to the Lord. According to the blueletterbible.org, referencing Strong's Concordance, the term we are looking for is H8441. I included this nugget in so that you can also look up all these uses of this exact phrase. It is used quite a bit, and not just when talking about God's feelings. Leviticus 18 verse 22 specifically calls male-male homosexual relations an abomination. The problem is that Leviticus 18 verse 26 says we shall not do any of these abominations. There's a plurality in there, meaning everything prior is considered an abomination, not just homosexual marriage, but also having sex with your wife on her menstrual cycle, tattoos, eating catfish. There's a reason I read the list off. I am not condoning having homosexual marriage. I am not condoning anyone committing tribal murder, because these are not our rules. If I was still under this law, then this is the will of God. I'm not under these rules. Does that make sense to you? If I'm not under these rules, this is not an abomination for me, unless it's listed somewhere else in the New Testament. You see, there's a second part of this whole following the rules thing. Part A is follow the rule, but part B is the punishment of it. So who's supposed to carry out the punishment? Yeah, the tribe. So if somebody commits this abomination unto the Lord, then the tribe is expected to carry out the punishment, up to and including death for cursing your mother or father. How many people has your church put to death because they cursed their mother or father? Because again, when you start quoting to me the book of Leviticus, that person over there, that homosexual over there, that's an abomination to the Lord, I'm going to immediately turn around to you and ask, how many bulls have you sacrificed? How many goats have you sacrificed? How many times have you let the pastor or priest look at the boil? You didn't go to the doctor first, right? You went to the priest first and let them look, because they're supposed to be the ones that are looking at it to determine if you're unclean. Were you circumcised? Because it should have been, remember, it should have been exactly 8 days. You haven't ever had catfish, have you? Oh man, that's an abomination. I'm not trying to downplay homosexual relations, but I'm also going to put everything in its exact perfect place. If you are a Christian throwing around the book of Leviticus regulations, you have a problem. See, Christ came and fulfilled the Old Testament. And it is very clear in the New Testament that when you violate one part of the law, you violate the entirety of the law. James 2:10. For whoever keeps the whole law and yet stumbles in one point, he has become guilty of all. So when you tell that lie, you violated God, period. This is the difference between the 12 tribes understanding of what God wants from us. This is the big difference to what Christians understand. We understand that sin is sin and God doesn't like any of it. All of it is an abomination to God. Lying is an abomination. It's all an abomination to God. All of it. As a Christian, all of it, God looks at it like, you have failed me. But let's get you clean. We are not part of the 12 tribes. One small failure is a failure of the law, period. Christians, please stop persecuting people that are homosexual and using this book, this literally not your book, Leviticus is not your book, to beat them over the heads with it. Please stop, man. We're supposed to love these people. Christ was very clear. We're supposed to love these people. When a preacher who's fallen from grace can walk into a church and gets less crappy looks than when a homosexual man walks into a church, we got a problem. We got a big problem. Sin is sin, folks. Sin is sin. You want to be Leviticus compliant? You need to go get your steady supply of goats, turtle doves, and everything else that you need for your sin sacrifices. Because what you're doing is you're denying that the sacrifice of Christ was enough. And so you have to keep making these sacrifices, or else you won't be Leviticus compliant. Keep in mind, boys and girls, in Matthew 9, we're told of a woman who bled for 12 years, right? That made her unclean, according to Leviticus 15, verse 19. That makes her unclean. So she's unclean and she reaches up and touches, right? You're a Christian. She touches your Christ's robe. She touches his cloak. And that makes him unclean, according to your book of Leviticus. Did he freak out? Did he rip all of his clothes off and run down the street? Did he stay away from the church for a week or two or however long he needed to? Did he sacrifice a bunch of animals to cleanse himself? No, not my king. My king didn't do any of that. Matthew 9, verse 22, daughter, take courage. Your faith has made you well. At once the woman was made well. I was told to love. That is what my God told me to do. Love. See, love is how we push back sin, and Christ is how we defeat it. Now, I will address homosexual marriage in a completely different video. I promise you I will. But it's going to be with love. See, I'll have a beer with anybody. I don't care. You can be homosexual. You can be straight. You can be Democrat, Republican. You can be black, white, purple, pink, green. I don't care who you are. Love. My God told me to love. And it starts with a relationship. And that's how you exercise that love. Love, man. Love. Faith, hope, and love are some good things he gave us. But the greatest is love. Love, man. Just go love people. Stop this beating people over the head with Leviticus. Again, you want to be Leviticus compliant? Okay. But when you start beating people over the head with it, or trying to sit in the high seats of the synagogue, think you're high and mighty because you're following some set of rules that you aren't even supposed to be following, cool. We got a problem. I hope this video finds you well. I hope you're blessed. If you are a Leviticus compliant person, I hope this video wakes you up. You were given 2 commandments to follow. 2. I'm not going to give you that one. You go find that yourself. God bless you. Be safe.